Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase, pricing, and availability questions concerning this watch. Today, I welcome back an old friend, one of my most admired dress watches of the modern era, and in my opinion, the watch that defines horlogerie modern Breguet. This is the Tradition 7027 BA. It's a 37mm watch launched in 2005, and the Marine and the Type 20 were inherited by the Swatch Group when it purchased Breguet. However, it was still up to the company's designers and watchmakers to decide what a clean sheet Breguet wristwatch should look like if they wanted to go after Patek Philippe, Lange, Vacheron, and AP in the modern era. And so while we love the Marine and we love the Type 20, this was the definitive statement of what a Breguet wristwatch could be, with sky's the limit budget, engineering, and imagination. It pays homage to historic Breguet pocket watches that did feature this very train layout and even dial orientation on top, but the watch in 37mm has been scaled down to fit on a wrist. So 37 in diameter. You can see the watch is relatively reasonable in profile. It's an easy watch to wear at 12.1mm thick. It looks thicker than it is. And then from lug tip to lug tip, very short, 45.3 across the wrist with a 20mm spacing between the lugs. Now I throw the watch on my wrist. My wrist is 16 centimeters in circumference. It wears beautifully. And I'm pulling the strap tight because the strap is not broken in. When this strap softens up, you'll see that the strap's nowhere near as far inboard as it is right now. Down the barrel, the lugs are nowhere near the edge of my wrist, and again, pulling the strap tight just so you can see it on the wrist and it'll sit flat. But this watch will in fact fit a wrist of 13.5 centimeters circumference. So even if your wrist is considerably smaller than my 16 centimeters, you're going to find this fits really nice. And with a domed bezel and a 12.1mm thickness, it will slide underneath the cuff. The strap is stiff, but that's because it's made of good materials. You can see thick cuts of rectangular scale alligator leather, black matte finish, thickly bolstered to give it volume with a monotone stitch and a folded edge. Calfskin on the bottom, you can see, and there are no crimpings or gougings. The brand new Breguet factory strap. Take a look. No expense spared. Screws, bars, and set screws are used to fix the strap to the case so it cannot pop out inadvertently. No spring bar horror stories in the offing right here. And you can see that on both sides. We have a buckle, which also includes a screw and a bar, because what use is fixing the strap to the case with a screw and a bar if you use a vulnerable spring bar on the buckle, and Breguet does not. So you can see that this too is of yellow gold, a folding clasp, a friction fit clasp. There's a little bit of knurling on the outside so you can grip it more easily, and snaps shut securely. The Breguet logo with polish and media blast. Rolling around to the case, I want to emphasize that there is one corner that has a small mark, and the watch has been priced accordingly. This is a beautifully made case, cold rolled to create this coining, and then hand finished in a jig to make it clean and surgical. The lugs welded on by hand and then hand filed to create this super sharp break between lug and case. You could see these little recesses. People sometimes ask, what are these? Are these dents? No, those are actually slots for case knives, which are used on some watches that have snapped together assemblies, and so that's what that is for the watchmaker's case knife. That's supposed to be there. Breguet crown, and they thought of everything. Look at that. They gave you a little kerf underneath to dig your nail in. The bezel is domed and polished, and the mid case is defined by the overlapping flanges of the bezel and the case back. The dial is gorgeous. First, there are two dials. There's the dial, and then there's the actual dial with the hours and minutes. So let's start there. As you can see, this is real handmade guilloche. So this is a solid gold disc that's then cut on engines that are hand-guided and hand-programmed, and then silvered to create what you see here. We have fired hands in Breguet style. Adjacent to that, you can see there's a lovely engraved scale for the power reserve indicator, 50 hours, single barrel, which gets pride of place right in the center, manual wind. Turn it all over, you can actually see the underlying mechanism for the power reserve, but also a second power reserve indicator. And you'll note once again that beautiful engraving. Now it's not all engraved. You can see caliber 507 DR. That has been mechanically applied, as has the note that this is Swiss made and and features 34 jewels, as well as has the little note that it's adjusted in a high horology style 5 positions. Now on the back you can see that we have this frosted style. Some people ask why not Côte de Genève, because in Breguet's time you would not have had Côte de Genève. You would have had frosted finish, and it usually would have been acid etched historically. This is probably achieved by some kind of blasting or maybe a wire brush. Taking a look, this kind of beveling would not have been common in Breguet's day, but people expect it today, so we do have mirrored bevels on the edge of the bridges. So rest assured, you're not being shorted the modern finish in exchange for this sort of vintage aesthetic. We also have satination on wheels. You can see that there's actually a little bit of internal beveling on the power reserve lever, and then we have these sharp interior angles where bevels meet, so they're not shorting you those either. Screws are blued, and you can see they're also polished. They're both mirror finished screws and then mirror finished screws that have been fire blued. It's a great look. Around the dial side, from the barrel to the great wheel, it is a great wheel because this is not a conventional center wheel layout. You can see that the spokes of the wheels are designed to look like pocket watches, and that they do. We also have finger-style bridges, just as you would on a Breguet watch of Breguet's era. Once again, we have that frosted finish, and we have little locating pegs. You can see these little polished steel dots. Those are actually used to locate bridges on underlying structures like the base plate, and you can see they've been mirror polished on their top in the finest tradition of modern horology. The wheels all feature satination. You can see there's also satination on the barrel cover, which is a great look. And once again, just turning this over, you can see that all these bridges have been hand beveled. Taking a look at the balance, there's a couple things we have to note. First, we have Breguet parachute shock protection. But I believe there may be that might be purely symbolic. There may be a conventional modern shock protector underneath it. I haven't disassembled one to know for sure, but I do believe it's a possibility that the overlapping steel shock protection system is primarily aesthetic and fantastic in that regard, and there may be a modern shock protection system. But the point being, Breguet created one of the first effective shock protection systems with parachute, which looked like this, back in his lifetime. He also created the Breguet overcoil. He did not create a recessed screw free-sprung balance. That is a modern feature that makes this watch easier to adjust to the utmost of precision, and the screws are recessed from the free airstream to reduce the impact of aerodynamic drag on timing. Take a look at the escape wheel and the anchor. You can see that they've been mirror finished. That's a nice attention to detail. And then we have an overcoil hairspring. And the overcoil was a Breguet invention designed in the interest of centering the mass of the hairspring. So the idea here is that by doubling over itself with one of the terminal coils, you can center the mass of the hairspring so it doesn't have a heavy side or a light side. And as a result, it is not going to gain time in one position and lose time in another. And that's a big deal. That was a very powerful idea, because if you think about the complexity of a tourbillon, why was it created? Well, to cancel out the effect of gravity on timing. What does this do? Well, it helps to cancel out the effect of gravity on timing, only it does it with a lot less apparatus complexity and downstream service costs. Taking another look, you can see that the free-sprung balance beats away at 3 Hertz, and of course this is a 50-hour power reserve manual wind. It's 30 meters water resistant, so don't take it swimming, but it should be sound if you splash it by accident. You could see that the click and the underlying apparatus for the keyless works are all on the case back and that they are nicely decorated. A watch that's handmade inside and out, frankly, as good as anything made by any chic independent, and one of my personal favorites. I would say yellow gold is the one to get among the 7027s. It has the most color character and looks the most visibly related to Breguet's own work. So reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.